finally got the MiGHTYMAX on the show after a long time of discussing. This is the first episode of Through the Scope with Team Endpoint. Obviously, we're on the Endpoint channel today because obviously we're interviewing Max, who's from Endpoint, and I want to get more content on their channel. It's the first episode. Hopefully, I'm going to get some more people from Endpoint themselves, the team, maybe some staff as well. Pete coming on. But it's the first episode with Max. We've got the lovely MiGHTYMAX on here with his webcam. He's looking absolutely gorgeous there. Look at him. Look, with the lockdown trim. You're absolutely enjoying it. We had a couple of technical difficulties at the start, so hopefully it runs smoothly. Let me know if it doesn't. But yeah, diving straight into this. I've been looking forward to this with my good mate. We're just going to jump straight into it with the first few questions. MDL season just came to an end. I just want to know what your thoughts are on the entire season, and just overall, how did you think it went in the first season of MDL with this new roster?
Surprisingly well, I think. We went into it knowing that we had a limited map pool and like we were obviously quite a new team as well. So in that aspect, it was quite a pleasant feeling to make the playoffs. I mean, I think we finished fourth overall. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's not really a bad season. So
Yeah.
happy.
Do you think you matched your expectations going in? Like obviously before the season, you guys must have looked at it and said like, this is this is what we want to achieve, or this is where we want to get to. Do you think you like overreached that like at the start, or do you think you done better than what you've expected to do?
Well, our only goal was to make the playoffs for MDL.
Hmm.
So everything else aside from MDL was a bonus. So yeah, we could easily met our goals.
Yeah, nice. In that season, what do you think was the biggest learning curve as a team for that season?
Probably the scheduling. It's been a massive drain on us. Obviously, I tweeted about it yesterday.
Hmm.
We've played either close or above 200 maps
Yeah.
since the start of the year, so it's been almost a map a day on average. So it's
It's been
quite
crazy.
mental.
Yeah, I think this will lead me up into my following questions later on in the stream. But it's been crazy how many games you guys have been playing like every day. Even when I message you, you guys are just in a HLDV game or you're in in a tournament here, MDL game. It's been absolutely crazy. What's this is a question I wanted to ask, and it links to my other question later on in the show. What's the biggest change from previous seasons when you played in MDL with other rosters? What was the biggest change in this season? Like, what do you feel like was the biggest difference in MDL this season to it was when you previously played in it?
What as a team?
Yeah, or just you as a player. It could be both. Like, as you as a player when you played before, what do you
Um,
think the biggest change was in this season to compared to the last? Sorry.
I think a bit of it was just knowing that we can compete to a higher level than before. Like we kind of proved it before we qualified in some tournaments that we can sort of beat above our level. So we knew as a team and even individually like we're good enough or even better than some of the teams in MDL. So that
Hmm.
was obviously a big factor, I think.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of as a team, like I think we'd have more experience. Like we didn't really struggle knowing how we lost games or anything, or we knew how to win games as well. So it wasn't anything to do with that. So I think there's a bit of both, like confidence and experience.
Yeah, and I think the biggest driving factor is when leading up into the MDL season. I think you guys gained a lot of confidence, right? In like from previous games before. You had the Dreamhack. I think that really helped you guys strive into this next season of MDL. You even caught me by surprise. I thought your first season of MDL would be not so much of a struggle because you guys were performing really well, but I didn't think you would just hit it that hard and actually do so well. Obviously, in the end, towards playoffs, which I'm going to get onto in a minute, you could tell there was a bit of drain of how many games you've actually played and stuff. But that's on the next question. The big topic I want to cover from an outside perspective, and I think a lot of people think this. It's obvious you guys are as a roster are playing a lot of officials. You can kind of tell. You can see it, like you guys have mentioned it in tweets and stuff like that. And obviously, we spoke about it privately. You can notice a real burnout from the team. Do you think this has played a part in your games in MDL and even other officials you may have played?
No, I think it has. I think it affects everyone on the team, not just including me. Like we've played 200 games, so it's thinking about it now. It's a lot more than we thought we would ever play. I don't
Hmm.
think any team would expect to play that much.
Yeah,
Um, but it's just going through the motions. Like you play every day. Like we haven't been able to practice for a couple of weeks at least. So
yeah.
for us, all the important games come towards the end of the season. So in that aspect, it's quite bad for us because we're so drained and so sort of out of the game mentally that it's quite annoying.
Yeah,
But
I was going to say as well, like, not taking any credit away from obviously games that you've lost of the teams that they've played, they've probably performed well. But in some way, like, obviously, I watch a lot of your guys' games, and you can almost tell in some games, like, I don't want it to come across wrong, you can almost tell in some games where you just notice that burnout feeling where you've played all day, where you've started at what, like 9, 10 a.m. or something, you've played all day and you're playing this last best of three, and you can almost tell, like, you can get that vibe, of just you guys are just drained so much in the fact of you've just played all day and you could just not I don't know how to explain it in depth, but you can just notice that there's a like burnout there, right? You're just done sort of thing for the day. And I think that plays a part because when you lose to a team that technically you shouldn't lose to and on paper you are better than, I definitely do think it plays a part. Obviously not taking credit away from the teams that do beat you. But linking up to this question, how have you, and obviously I want to link Ross to this because he is the coach, how have you and Ross like managed to keep the team like just on a balance? Like you can notice your players might be just absolutely burnt out, and they just you can tell that they just not that they don't want to be there, but they're so drained. How have you and Ross managed to like keep on top of this and keep them afloat to keep playing at a decent level, obviously?
well, like every time we sort of realized that, like we realized the other day that we have, like you were saying, we had to play a 9 a.m. game,
Hmm.
and then we had to play 2 more best of threes in that day. So we had 3 best of threes starting at 9 a.m.
Yeah,
Like you just have to get on with it. There's no, like, you can't just complain about it. Otherwise, like what's that gonna do? Like you just
yeah,
have to play. But into like we keep saying that we'll keep playing until the player break, and we have like a week or two until we break. So it's just like
hmm,
getting over the last hurdle. And everyone knows that we're gonna have 2 or 3 weeks off. So it's like light at the end of the tunnel. Like
yeah.
everyone knows sort of that if we just keep playing now, then we'll have like 2 or 3 weeks off, then we can just reset.
Yeah, it's something you can look forward to, right? Like, I guess if the players and you didn't know that at the end of it there was going to be like a nice little break, I think it would affect you even more. Have you guys sat down and spoke about it? Like, has there been a meeting where you guys have just said, like, look, man, we are just playing so much, like, it's proper draining. Like, have you guys sat down and spoke about it at all?
No, we chew on TeamSpeak, and like we're like, man, like we have to play. Like we'll
Yeah,
look at our schedule and we go, wow, we have to play like 10 games this week.
yeah,
You asking me when to come on for the show, I was like, let me check next week. Oh, I've got games every single day for the whole week. And then like we'll look at him like, okay, so we have this tournament, this tournament, this tournament. We got a best of three here, best of twos, best of ones, whatever. Like
yeah.
it, like we just sit there and just kind of laugh at it, but it's
Yeah,
just like
that's the
great
reason I
fun.
asked that because obviously so many people have been asking me like when are you coming on the show, and I'm like, bro, it's impossible. Like every time we try and book to date, like you're just busy, 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 and obviously linking with me as well. Like I have stuff to do, but like when we was there that last week when I was trying to book you in, like it was just nah, I'm busy that day, busy that day, busy that day. You can just tell, man, it's crazy. Moving on from that though, you recently just qualified for Dreamhack. This must have been a big relief linking to the whole burnout situation, right? Like, you play that much, obviously you want somewhat of a reward at the end of it. So seeing that obviously must have helped the team. Was this an expected qualification? Like, did you think that you guys would have made it? Like, when I saw it, I was obviously happy for you guys, but I think in the end, I think it's just a big thing for you guys to actually relieve that sort of stress of just playing so much. And linking on to that, like, what's your wishes for this tournament? Like, where do you want to be compared to the last Dreamhack that you played at?
Well, the funniest part was we weren't even going to play it because we were so like we looked at our schedule. We went, "Wow!" Like we have to play an entire week of MDL playoffs, and then straight into a DreamHack. We were like, "We're not going to play it," and then we were like, "We'll play it." Then we got first seed, I think it was, which was surprising. I don't know, was it surprising? Like there was quite a few good teams in there, so we've
Yeah,
never really been a first seeded team. But I don't think it was really expected. Like as the bracket started playing out, we saw some teams get eliminated quite early, and then we thought, like we have a really good chance.
yeah.
Then there was some like massive scandal with some Russian team getting disqualified. Then
Really? I didn't
we had
know that.
to wait. Yeah, so we won all our games obviously,
Hmm.
and then we went to play at midday the next day, and then a Russian team got disqualified. So then they had to replay the bracket, and then we had to wait like 6, 7 hours or something. Like it was a bit crazy. Um, but yeah, like it was definitely like a relief. Like it's the first time a UK team's ever qualified for an open qualifier.
Hmm.
I think it's the first time that some of us have even qualified to a DreamHack. I don't know speaking for everyone in our team, but
Yeah.
at least the majority of our team.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's just a shame it won't be a LAN though. Like obviously it's quite nice going to a LAN, but it's going to be played online in August.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a good tournament for us. So good
Yeah, that
qualifier.
I was going to say as well. Like, it's obviously not. It's a great feeling that you guys qualify for that DreamHack, but it's not obviously. It does. It's kind of annoying that it isn't a LAN. Like, because the LAN obviously they are sick. Like, even watching them. Like, I love watching DreamHacks. And obviously because of the Corona and stuff like that, you can't go there. But linking up to the last DreamHack that you guys played, where do you want to place in this next DreamHack? Like, what's your goals for this next DreamHack? Like, where do you want to strive to be in this next tournament?
Honestly, with the teams that are there,
Mm,
I don't know. I think just being able to I think we can beat a couple of those teams. Like
yeah,
we've had good run-ins with them before. But obviously, it's going to be right after the player break, a couple of days after the player break. So I think some of them might come in quite hot, some of them might come in quite cold. So we'll
yeah.
just have to wait and see. But I think like maybe winning a couple of games will be good for us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's something that you said even in the last stream out. You remember, like we spoke about it together, and obviously, I think you guys did better than what you ever mentioned. But I think now going into this next stream out, I think you guys can actually go further than what you did in the original one. I think obviously, there's a. I'd say this one's a bit more competitive in terms of the last group of teams in the last stream out, but I still think you guys, like you said, can definitely pull a few upsets and definitely pull a few wins there. And obviously, where you'd love to win the event, but as long as you can, I guess, link to the last one and do better than the last one. I guess that's where you look for the success. Um, Moving on to a bit more about you now as a player. Obviously, I've known you a long time, and I've known at times that you didn't really want to fall into the IGL role. It was something that you didn't really brush aside. You would do it if it was needed, obviously for the team, but it's not something you fully wanted to invest into. And obviously with this new roster now, you finally slotted yourself into there, and you're fully 100% invested into being the IGL. And the reason I bring this up is I think it's one of the biggest reasons why your team's such a success. It's just because you finally invested yourself into being an IGL. What made this happen? Like, is it something that you just said I've got to do it, or is it something you just naturally slotted into?
Um, I think the whole time I played CS, I've always been more of a team player rather than a solo player.
Hmm.
Even before I was IGL, so like I would always take positions that were, not wanted or whatever. And then it was like it got to the point where in the UK there was no IGLs, so it was like,
Yeah,
well, like what do we do? So it was kind of forced upon people to change into IGL. Like I know Adam changed from like into an IGL, I changed into an IGL, and it's like
hmm,
I don't think people want to do it because it's not really a role that's looked good upon. Like you don't really recognize the amount of work that goes into it
yeah.
until you're actually doing it yourself. Um, but like yeah, it was kind of rough at the start. Like I didn't really want to do it, but someone had to do it, so it ended up being me.
Yeah,
Um, but it's been like a really big learning curve for me, especially like going back to if you compare teams that were in Endpoint when I started compared to now, like the difference is just ridiculous. Like how we play,
yeah.
how I think about the game, how I like would set up my teammates, how we set up our team, stuff like that. So
Yeah, I can imagine it's a big difference from last rosters, and that's a question following up later in the stream about some last rosters that you've been at Endpoint. But staying on this topic, was there ever like a debate or like a little talk between you and Robin that who would take the IGL role, or was it just something Robin said, I think you should do it, Max, and that's how you just went on to do it? Or did you have that little talk pre-ammed, like maybe Robin should try it? Because obviously I know Robin IGL'd in the last roster where you had a decent amount of success with the one with Lazar and stuff and Reese. Um, was it something that you guys spoke about beforehand when in the Phoenix days?
no, I don't think so. Well, actually, no, it's not true actually. So when we were playing the WSG qualifier,
Yeah,
um, it was the first, like it was when we lost to Vex for the first time. I think it was the only time we ever lost to them. It was in the
yeah,
best of three. We lost 2-0. And like we said after that game, I was like, man, we have like too many chefs in the kitchen. Like, what are we doing? Everyone's
yeah.
trying to call different things, and then we don't end up doing any of it.
Hmm.
So I guess at that point, it was like kind of decided that I'd go IGO, and then from there, it hasn't really been brought up again. So I guess that was like the discussion, but
Yeah.
it wasn't really a discussion. It was just
Yeah,
like
that was
people
just a
saying like,
natural. Yeah, it was like the changing point. But I guess that's kind of what needed to happen, right? Obviously, once you have that person that is now the person that's going to do it, that I think that's why it's helped you guys so much. And I guess that was the turning point in the team that finally made you that IGL. And like I said, I'm so glad that you finally naturally just fell into that slot, because beforehand you would do it, but it's something you didn't want to fully invest into. And I think the reason why, obviously no credit away from the other guys because they're amazing as well, but I think one of the big reasons of your success so far is because you've actually just fully invested into that role. Linking on to that though, with you going into IGL, what's the biggest issue you've run into since falling into fully IGLing now? Like, what was the biggest problem for you and you had to overcome in this team as an IGL?
Um, I'd say probably that it's a lot to do with the mental side. Like, I know that I can play at a high level of CS, but it's knowing sort of when things aren't going as planned in games, and even in like over a period of time, say a month, you realize that like we're getting worse or we're not progressing or something. It's figuring out how do we get over that? How do we go beyond the point that we're already at? And that's something that is really hard
Mhm.
to sort of like put into words. But it's something that I think over the past 3 months, now that we've been playing so many games, it's something that kind of makes it a bit easier to
Yeah.
reflect on. So I'd say that's the hardest part for me. Just like knowing how to keep progressing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things like, next step, next step, next step is always on the back of your mind, right? Yeah, I can agree with that. And linking on to that as well, what's the best feeling that you've had so far? Obviously, IGLing with this team.
Um, Probably being able to compete at a high level as an like for me personally, I'm quite a novice IGL. Like I've never really done it to a
Mhm.
high level, but in this team, like I've been able to do it to almost a top 30 level already, which is I think is a good feeling for me.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean it. And once you fall into that role, obviously, it's very hard to get a lot of IGLs now. It's very hard to find that like sense of achievement, because it's one of those roles that you don't get a lot of limelight with sometimes. And obviously, you guys have been competing with some of the top teams in the world, and that must be obviously an amazing feeling for you. And to do it consistently, obviously, just increases that feeling. Moving on to that, from that question, it's kind of linked as well. But when the team was formed, obviously, well, it wasn't really formed, was it? It was kind of just like naturally falling into place. It was like a core of 3 players or whatever in the Phoenix days. Um, did you ever think that the team could go this far? Like, did you sit there and think when you was in that team? Did you think, wow, like we are going to be in this position that we are now currently? Did you ever have that feeling?
I never thought of it when we first formed. Like I knew obviously the core of the team could it's already been quite a high ranking already. Like I think they made like top 20 or top 30 before, but I never thought of it in that way when we made the team. I just knew that we could be good.
Yeah, for sure. And like, when I can't, let's just throw it back to the Phoenix days. It was a core of it was Thomas, Robin, and Joey, right? Or was it something
No,
something?
it was Joey, Kaya, and Thomas,
Oh, that was
and
it.
then
Yeah, and Reese
uh,
played a little bit, didn't he? Like Pulse was playing, wasn't Pulse playing, or supposedly going
yeah,
to play?
it was like they were trying like it was during a period where they got all their players took from them, so it was just Thomas, Kaya, and Joey, and then they tried Robin, and they were trying Reese. I think they were trying at one point they were trying Spellan as well,
Yeah,
or maybe that was before. I can't remember,
yeah. I
but
think I think you're right with the spelling thing. Yeah. And when was the actual time when you guys sat there and said, okay, this is when we're going to fully go for it? Like when like because obviously you joined and whatever. At the time when I saw it from an outside perspective, obviously I was in Fierce at the time, but I just thought you were generally just a mix at first, and like obviously trying, but still as a mix. When was it the point in time where you guys sat there and went, okay, we're gonna go full steam ahead and actually make this a thing, or was that
oh
just a thing from the start?
no, we were definitely a mix at the start. I
Mm.
literally I messaged Kaya and I was like, "Do you want to play WSG?" Because I saw the qualifiers are coming up, and they were like, I think Fierce were in it and Vex were in it,
Yeah.
and those are the two UK teams. I was like, right, I want to get involved in this. And then I messaged Kaya. He's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And then obviously because they had the core three of Phoenix, they already had them three ready. And
Hmm.
then they messaged Robin and then said like, well, we'll play it. And then we won it. And then they were like, "Do you want to make a team?"
Yeah. Hold on one sec. uh, sister came in my room. Yeah. So like the fucking off topic now. Basically, like because when I first saw the team, obviously I thought it was a mix at first, and that was when I first saw the team fully go into like serious mode. Was in that West G qualifier because we actually played you, didn't we? And what round was it? Was it? the was it the quarters? I think when we played you in the best of three, or was it the semi? And then you went on to play the old. Was it Heretics? No, was it Heretics or was it LDLC? So you played someone, and that's when you qualified, right, in that game. I can't remember who it was because you beat
We
us, and then you
played,
went on to play.
yeah, we played LDLC in the
That's it,
final.
LDLC. Yeah, because when that was when I first saw that roster be proper serious and go, okay, this is when you're going to go full steam ahead with it. Anyway, moving on from that. You obviously, when you made the team, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, you guys picked up Ross, right? I think it was about 3 weeks later, maybe even longer than that. Um, I remember Ross making a tweet, and you guys obviously dived into it and got involved. Basically, just want to talk about him and how much Ross has helped you and helped the team since he's been joining. Like, has he helped you in the IGL role, like move forward? Because obviously, we ain't doubting his experience. He's been a coach for a long time, and there's nothing but good things to say about him from past teams. Has he helped you in your role, like fully develop?
Yeah, definitely. I think he's not only helped me, he's helped everyone else in the team. I think people have this weird, well, it's not weird, but like they could like perceived him as the guy that would come in
Yeah.
and just bring, strats after strats after strats,
Mhm.
because that's what he was known for with Excel, I think, and
Mhm.
that's how we knew him when we first got in touch with him. But it was like when we spoke to him about the role, he had such a different mindset about it, and that's what intrigued us so much. Like he realized kind of like he was like self-critiquing how he'd done it before and realized
Yeah.
that it's not the way to do it or how he wants to do it. And then he basically had a discussion with us um, on TeamSpeak, and he was just explaining like what he wants to do and sort of his methodology and stuff. And it was so different to what I'm used to that I really wanted to try it, and it worked
Yeah.
out perfectly. So
And obviously, like at first, it's always one of those things where you have to get used to people. And I'm glad that, to be honest, out of everyone, I'm glad that he actually got the role because I don't really know him personally, but the only things I've heard about him from before and past teammates is only good things. And I can imagine that he's helped you guys naturally just progress and helped you in that role, obviously. And for him, obviously joining the team, was there ever a point where he instantly noticed that there was some big issues or there's some hurdles that you needed to overcome that he instantly wanted to just focus on when he first joined, or was it kind of just over time?
um, I think it was more over time. Like I think in terms of my opinion of it, like from my experience as well, we're a team that didn't have many glaring issues. Like we didn't, compared to like UK teams with all the drama you see on social media, like we didn't have these deep rooted issues with people. Like we were all friends, we all played with each other at least before, like in
Hmm.
mixes or whatever, and we all had that like mutual respect and like professionalism. And then when he came in, he brought even more of it. Like he understood kind of the structure of a team, and then he was able to identify the issues, and then we would just speak about them.
Hmm. No, it's a good thing. And I mean, when was it actually that you guys actually picked up Ross? Like, you was a team for quite a while, right? And it was when I think it was maybe like 3 weeks after you joined Endpoint, maybe that's when you actually approached him, or did he approach you, or did you approach him? That's another question as well.
I think we approached him,
Yeah,
but
because
but I can't remember when it was. I think it was sometime in January or maybe early February. So I know we were searching for a coach for a while, um, and like we just thought of Ross.
Yeah, because I remember he made that tweet, and then obviously that's when about I think it was like 2 weeks later you guys actually picked him up. But that's good to hear, man. I just basically wanted to see. Obviously, it's about you and Endpoint. I just wanted to see how he helped you, and obviously and all that. Moving on from that, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, and you said I want to talk about and get in depth with this is past roster because obviously you've been in part of Endpoint for a while. Past rosters that you've played in and link into this roster now. What's the difference? And you can go through all the rosters if you want, or you can go through just a couple of ones that come to mind. We can get in depth for this one. But what's the biggest difference between the rosters?
Um, I'd say it depends on which roster. Like I think there were some that were like decent,
Hmm.
and we just it just folded. Like that was the end of the road for the team, and it folded. And there were some that were just like pretty bad. And I said before, I don't know what stream it was on, but like I take some blame for that because when I was like first signed to IGL, that
Hmm.
it was like I was in such new territory that I didn't know what was going on. Like,
Yeah.
and then like I got like very little support from our teammates, so it was like, I don't know what I'm doing, so then I can't tell what everyone wants to do. But it was like it's such a weird atmosphere. I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I think some of them um, were kind of my fault for not doing well, and then
Hmm.
some of them were just like bad rosters.
Yeah, I can obviously. I've followed Endpoint for a while, and even when I was in there, things happened. It was up and down. Um, let's talk about the roster, obviously, where you made top 50 with Joe, Reese, Robin. Obviously, similar to this core that you've got now. Um, was there any, and I asked this to Lazar on my last show with him, was there any similarities with them two teams that's why they did so well? Obviously, it's similar players, so that's one of them, but was there some things that you did in that team that link? That's why you both did so well. Obviously, that team got top 50, right? And obviously, you now are 35th, nearly 30, top 30. What was the similarities between the two, if there was?
Um, I think this, like, what compared to this team,
Yeah, compared to this current team now, yeah.
I think they're, I guess in terms of ranking, they're similar, but I think they're vastly different atmospheres. Like, I think the way we got top 50 before
Hmm.
was, it was like we won ESL UK and we won I Series, and then that was instantly top 50.
Yeah,
So like in that aspect, it wasn't as difficult, I'd say, to
yeah.
reach that ranking compared to now. But it was still obviously a good achievement, and I think we were able to play to a good a decent level of CS. It was just ultimately, I think the atmosphere in that team is so different to this one. Like, I think we used to argue like 2-3 times a week, and it
Jesus.
was like in this team, like, you'd be lucky to have an argument like
Hmm.
once every 2 weeks. Like, even then, it would be settled instantly. So
Yeah.
like, I think the atmosphere in a team is such a big overlooked thing, especially in UK teams. Like,
Hmm.
I think people are really quick to bring the atmosphere down, especially with the arguments and just like UK attitudes. I'd say like it's easy to start an argument, especially with how stubborn and like egotistical players can be,
Hmm.
and they won't back down from it. So like, especially what I see on Twitter, like some other teams that aren't involved in us, like
Wow.
it's crazy. Like,
Yeah, that's the thing as well. Like, when you link back to your roster now, you can almost tell from an outside perspective. The attitudes. You've got a lot of experienced players there. The attitudes. Top notch. But it's a question I wanted to ask is, what's the biggest thing as a team you guys have hit? Like the biggest wall you've hit, and you thought, wow, this is dodgy. Like this is kind of risky. Like not so much like a scare where you like, oh, you're gonna fold or something, but just something where you've hit and you've gone, can we overcome this, or it's took you a long time to overcome it? Is there a thing you guys have hit where you've wondered how long it's going to take you to overcome it, and you've been worried about it as a team?
playing complexity.
Ah, I sort of knew you'd answer it like that. Is that really it?
Like, on it, like, there's nothing worse. Like, it was a good
Oh,
thing and a bad thing, I guess, like a blessing in disguise. Like, we realized we were good,
yeah,
and then we played against them. We were like, wow, we're not that good yet. So it was like a harsh lesson to be learned, I guess. It's
yeah,
like we played them like 6 times, 5 times in a row or something,
yeah. It was
and every
crazy.
time it was in the semi-final or quarter-final or something. But then, like, we were able to look at it and go like, "Look, obviously these guys are better than us, so let's just learn from it."
I,
But,
I
like,
think it's a good
it's
reality
so
check, right?
painful.
It's a good reality check, I think, as well. Like it's
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
and bad thing,
definitely.
Like it's scary because you're like we're doing so well. Like we've had some really good results. You play them, it's just like bang, and it's like a good reality check because it's like okay, put us back in where we belong and let's focus on grinding. And then at the same time, it's like wow, are we actually good or have we just been owned? Now, it's a good answer to be fair. I kind of thought that would be it, but at least it isn't something worse, bro. It could be something where you could like arguing all the time or something. Um, moving on from that, what do you think is the biggest? You kind of touched upon it with the attitude, but what do you think are the like multiple reasons why this roster is so superior? Because I think this is the best UK roster we've ever had. That's just my opinion, and I think a lot of people would agree. What is the things or multiple things that makes this team so superior to previous endpoint rosters or previous rosters you've been a part of, or even previous UK rosters that have been around that have done well?
Um, I'd say it's like one of the main things, like I said, is atmosphere. Like, I think we've all played in teams where the atmosphere is bad,
Hmm.
and everyone knows when it gets bad, like your team can just fold off that instantly without anything else. They can just fold off people hating each other,
Hmm.
like petty arguments, like there's little like snide comments at people, like really like immature stuff. So like that's by far the most important thing.
Mhm.
But I think as well, obviously, we've got like great support from Endpoint, which is another factor.
Yep.
And then third, I think it's just like the mesh of the players. Like there's no egos in this team. Like we've all like I've known Joey for years. I've played with Thomas before. I played with Robin before.
Mhm.
The only person I didn't really play with was Kaya, but like he's so
Yeah.
easy to get along with. It doesn't really matter. Like he has no ego or anything. So like everyone puts their egos aside when we play, and we just play as a team. So there's no like confrontations or anything when we play. It's just like we set the team up, we go through our practice and we
Mhm.
play, and then we try to maintain a good atmosphere, and that's all we do.
Yeah, I think that, and I've said it for a long time. Even when I, started coaching and stuff, like having that fluid motion of just such a good atmosphere and just in a team and just enjoying it together is such a key thing. And I'm glad, and I kind of recognise with that team, like a lot of people doubted that there would be a lot of clashing, but when you know the people, and obviously I know them. Most of them quite well. I always knew that you guys would just get along and just do your thing, do your job essentially. So that's a good thing. Moving back onto a bit about you now, instead of the team. I just want to know what your favourite moment of your career has been in CS, and it can be multiple things if you want it to be.
Um, I think being able to compete at Anaheim was a really good feeling, like especially with how new of a team we were. Like we went into it just sort of cramming everything in, trying to get enough of a map pool down that we could play a best of three. But we managed to take a series of Forza, which was quite nice. I think qualifying for MDL again was another good feeling, and then like in addition to that, like making the playoffs in our first season again, like
Mhm.
this entire season's been pretty crazy, to be honest. We've
Mhm.
been non-stop playing since January without a break, and it's like reflecting upon it, like it's quite a good feeling of how far we've come, and I know that next season we can go even further by putting the same or if not more level of work in.
Yeah, and I mean that must be a good feeling, right? Like after, because you went through this period of where you were out of the team, you were out of Endpoint, and it was kind of like a horrible thing, wasn't it? Like situation, like you were trialing in a couple of other teams. So for naturally, like 6 months ahead, maybe longer, this has all come about, and all this hard work starting to pay off. It must be a great feeling. Linking on to that question though, what do you think? And I probably thought this would be the answer, but what do you think the worst moment of your career has been so far? And again, it can be multiple.
Um, I don't know. I think most of last year it's been a pretty bad point. I think like we didn't compete that well in Endpoint. Like it was just like it was the year of just losing. Like we didn't do anything. We went to Copenhagen games. I think we couldn't qualify for that. We came back. I think we got relegated from ESL UK.
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure we did anyway. But we managed to sort of
Yeah, you did. I
re-qualify
remember that.
for
Yeah.
that. We had like different teams in Endpoint that just weren't that good, and then that,
Hmm.
that was when I like got pushed back into the IGL role,
Hmm.
and then obviously I got removed from Endpoint, which I took as like a bad thing and a good thing. So it managed to let me have time off of CS
Hmm.
to sort of reflect. Like I thought about quitting, and then
Hmm.
I was like, no, I'll still play. And then the experience of the European teams was quite good, I think, for me. It would like opened
Yeah.
my eyes, sort of like the atmosphere of teams and sort of how they get along with each other.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, it got a bit better again. But I'd say like the worst part of my career was probably last year.
Yeah.
Was
For sure.
genuinely the year.
I thought that would be the answer as well, because I knew firsthand obviously what happened and stuff like that and how bad it was. It's kind of linked to me as well. And you mentioned like trialing in them European rosters, and you learned some things, and how things are differently. And I guess as well, when you was moved from Endpoint, again, when I looked at it from an outside perspective, I thought of it a good and bad thing, because you were seen as literally like the man of Endpoint. And then, but at the same time, I also thought maybe it's a good thing now to time to move on and try different things. But this is another question I want to ask, and it's going back to the team. And Neil just asked it in chat. And I want to ask it now because it's a very good question when I think about it, and it's something I didn't think of. Do you think people like K-Man and Joey and the way they approach CS is a lot different to UK players naturally, or even players that you've teamed with before? And how do they approach it differently? And just not caring about other people and stuff like that.
Yeah, massively. Like from my experience, like I'm kind of limited to just people that played in Endpoint, right? It's literally the only team I played for, I
Hmm.
think. Um, but yeah, like whenever I talk to them about the meta of maps or like things that we can do. They always bring like a perspective on it
Hmm.
rather than just saying, like I don't know, or like just doing things that they've done for 2 or 3 years already. Like I know some people will like just be habitual in what they do. They'll just play the same way. They
Mm.
won't improve, and then they wonder why they're not improving. But yeah, it's definitely they definitely approach the game differently, but I guess it goes to their experience. Like they've all been in top teams.
Yeah.
Like I know Joey's been to America, Kai's been to America. Like even in Europe when they were in Epsilon, like they did really well. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think that probably attributes to why they're so much better than UK players.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, experience is a key thing, and like if you link it to other UK players or past UK players you might have played of, or even just naturally UK players in general, the attitude is the big difference, right? And I think a lot of people, like when we look at Endpoint now, a lot of people can learn from the team as a whole and individual players and how they approach the game. And this is why in the future I want to get like people on from the rest of the team, and people can get more of an insight of how the team's working. It might be a bit of a struggle, but I'll try my best. But I want to get them on and get people to have more of an insight of how they approach the game and how you approach the game as a team, because I think it's a big learning thing for a lot of UK players and UK teams to take from. It's clearly an option on why you guys are doing so well. Um, Moving on from that though, about the back to the team again. What what after this player break coming up? What as a team do you guys want to achieve for the after the player break when you come back for the rest of the year and so on? Like what are your goals? Have you discussed it, or is it something just in the back of your mind?
No, we definitely haven't discussed anything yet. But
Hmm.
I'd say it's probably safe to say that if we don't make top 30 before the player break, then I guess trying to make top 30
Hmm.
is the main goal. We've shown that we can compete in MDL, so I think making the playoffs again would be another goal.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we have to just wait and see. Like maybe the guys have different opinions to me, but I think it's safe to say they're all the same.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, it's kind of not a, it's kind of an in-depth question really, because with Corona situation and how the events are going now, it's kind of a hard thing to answer because you don't know what's going to be happening in a few months, right? Like you don't know if you're going to be going to events. It's probably still going to be online for a long time. So I just wanted to know really what the future was. But I guess again, making top 30 is the key one. Going back to advice onto the scene and stuff, bro. I've had this DM so much since I announced that you were going to come on the show. So many people have asked this question to me, and we just got to go over it. And it's basically just advice you can give to people as an upcoming player wanting to fill into the IGL role. What's the best advice you can give to start learning and just to start off as an IGL?
Oh, it's such a hard question to answer 'cause I think like there's so many different things you can do. And I'm probably not the most qualified person to give advice, but from my point of view, I think it helps if you're playing with people that respect you
Hmm.
and will sort of give you the freedom to sort of improve and give you the time to improve. Um, like watching demos is a must. Like you can't get away with being IGL without knowing the meta of maps.
Hmm.
Um, especially at our level, like when we play complexity, like they're always 10 steps ahead of us, and then we learn every time. We're like, wow, like these guys, like we think we know how to play a map, and then they absolutely slap us like 16-4, and we're like, wow. So
Yeah.
you have to put in extra effort outside of practice, I guess is the way to put it. Like, and you have to put in probably double the work, if not more, of your teammates because they're not going to do the work for you.
Hmm.
That's something I learned a lot, especially in UK teams. Um, so yeah, I'd say that's a good basis to start from, and like figuring out like what comes later is figuring out how you want to play. Like I think if you're starting out, like you can kind of get away with copying strats, just copying.
Hmm.
You can watch the charts, go, oh, they've got this cool exec, let's just copy this, and you'll get away with that for a while. But like when you get higher and higher on the rankings, it's like you have to understand the maps in a more like detailed way, like
Yeah.
knowing how to default, knowing how to fake off these things, knowing the timing windows of certain plays and stuff. But I think a good starting point is just watching loads of demos,
Hmm.
getting a strat book together, and just calling them like just like a strat roulette. Because I know what you'll learn. I think.
Yeah, I think I think that's a very good answer because, like you said, it's a question. It's very hard to answer. I get asked it a lot, and it's very hard to base off an answer on what they're doing. Like this question can be answered in so many different ways to the right person. So I think you've answered it quite correctly there. Um, Moving on from that, linking it to as well is, as a new team as a whole, what's the best advice you can give for them to start off and grow quite, well, not quite quickly, but the best way to grow as fast as a team, a new team? Best advice.
Step number one is make realistic goals. Like you can't, if you're starting out on the ESA Open, you say, within 9 months you want to be in advanced, but
Yeah.
you've had no experience
Yeah.
in main, intermediate, even let alone advanced. Like it's just not realistic. You have
Yeah.
to be able to realize sort of where your level is and where you can achieve. Like it's not, so you don't so you don't set a goal and go, oh, we haven't made advanced, let's fold the team.
Yeah.
It should be like a stepping stone process. And setting like short term goals, medium term goals, and long term goals. It's what we did, I think, at the start. Like we set a couple goals, but for us it was easy. Like we had at the Anaheim spot, so we said like, we
Yeah.
want to do this at Anaheim. We had experienced players, and we were already in advance. We want, we want to make MDL.
Mhm.
Um, but it's definitely a beneficial thing to do because then you can keep track of the progress and you can compare 6 months down the line to where you were and
Mhm.
say like, is this working?
Yeah, for sure. And like linking on to that answer, do you think like I always say this for my answer when people ask me this question. Do you think it's good as well? And you kind of said it in the first question. Like when a new team's formed, do you think it's good for them to sit down and go like, let's find out how we play and learn about every single player and work off of that? Like I think it's good to understand what team you're working with, right, and what players you've got, and build the the team style off of that. Finding your style. Can you agree that that's another good way of starting out as a team, like finding your style of how you want to play
Yeah,
and.
definitely. Like, especially if you haven't played the people before, like you don't know what sort of player there are. So you have to sort of, as an IGL, figure out the composition of the team. Like who's going to lurk, who's open, like who does certain roles better than others, who's
Yeah.
going to be the anchors on CT, who's going to be rotational players. Like
Hmm.
it's not. I used to have like a really polarized view of CS, like it's black and white, but it's not as simple as that.
Hmm.
And that's what you learn as an IGL. Like it's never simple. You have to figure out things as you go, and that's definitely one of them.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, I think it's one of those things as well where at the start it just takes a little bit of time to find your feet within the team. You've got to give it a little while to work out the basics and where you're going to go. And when you mentioned about just setting out realistic goals, and I think Lazza said this as well. I think it's such a key thing to all teams. If anyone's watching, remember that, just setting realistic goals as a new team. This is another question, bro, that I've been asked numerous times for you to answer. Best way to learn how to anti-strat, or to get started on watching demos, and where can it be used most effectively?
Um, so in terms of anti-stratting, like I think at a lower level, teams won't have diverse playbooks. So like you can watch, a handful of the demos and realize that's how they'll play a map.
Mhm.
So all you got to do is literally just load the demo up. Like right now, like I use the refactoring on the ACA, which is really good. You can go on there, speed through a demo, find all their strats, and then like what you have to do with the anti-strat though, you can't build a wall of text and tell your team, every single strat and every single grenade that's being thrown. It needs to be like digestible information so that
Mhm.
when you tell your team before a game, like they don't just start panicking and going, oh, are they going to throw this? Like, are they going to fake it? Like certain things mean this. Like it has to be like really accurate information that is easy to digest and like,
Mhm.
instantly how to counter it or what to expect. So that's like the most important thing for an anti-strat, that it can't be too complicated.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, you don't want to change too much of how you play to anti-strat a team, because that's something that's happened to me before. It's like we've anti-strat a team,
Yeah.
and then it turns out we're not even playing what we want to play because we're
Yeah.
so focused on what they're going to be doing
Mhm.
that everyone's just pooing themselves. Like, oh wow, this strat's going to come in. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it can, like, the most effective way of using it is, I don't know what you mean by that. Like, it's just making sure that the information is correct by watching not just one demo. You have to
Mhm.
watch a handful of them, or like even more, depending on how much you want to do it. Um, and just making sure that the information gets relayed correctly and people understand it.
Yeah, the whole question about it being used effectively was just in the sense of like you said, at the lower level, it's very hard to start anti-stratting teams because, like you said, a lot of teams won't have the same like diverse playbook. People will just do random things. It's very hard to start out. The whole effective question is like where when they do use it, how to put it into place. And you answered it really, like relaying the information and stuff like that is the best way. Next question, final question about like helping other teams and stuff in the scene. Best way to practice as a team, as a unit, as a starting off. Where would you start off like cracking as a team in the best way?
I think trying to like the way that we did it in this team is, for me, it was the first time doing it as well. Was
Hmm.
I literally in the first thing we did was build our map pool. Like I said, what maps do we want to play? What maps do we not want to play? And people literally voted on what maps we didn't want to play. So
Hmm.
it came. I think it came at the start. It was like everyone wanted to play, like Mirage, Inferno, Dustia, and stuff. And like the maps like Overpass and Nuke were towards the bottom because they're like just maps people don't really enjoy playing. So
Hmm.
instantly we knew we had like 3 or 4 maps that we knew we were going to be playing.
Yeah.
Um, so building a map pool is probably the most important thing. Second thing, I guess, is setting a schedule, because it depends. Obviously, like I know we play full time, but not everyone can play
Yeah.
full time. Just setting a schedule that you can practice, and these are the days or hours we're practicing, rather than it being just sporadic. 'Cause I think that winds people up, or it's not as effective as well. Like it's just, yeah. And the third thing is just watching demos together. I think if it's possible, watch your own games back. But I know some teams can't 'cause they don't play ESCA or whatever. But
Hmm.
watching professional teams play together is a really good thing. 'Cause you'll learn a lot regardless. But obviously, if you can watch your own games back, you'll learn so much more.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 things I'd say you want to start off practicing, and you'll find progress like instantaneous, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's very good points to make for like just starting out. And linking on to the question I asked a minute ago, for people starting out to learn watching demos and anti-strat, would your advice be to go to a third party software, or would it be to learn just how to use the normal demo UI, or would you advise them
No,
to go and use a different
I,
program?
I I would 100% say to use the refrag thing on the ACA.
Yeah.
It literally, I've played CS for a ridiculous amount of time, and it's by far the easiest thing you can use to watch demos. Like it's
Hmm.
just so you play the normal demo UI, and you have to skip around. You have
Yeah.
to wait 10 minutes, and you miss something. You want to go back. Oh well, you got to wait another 10 minutes. And it's just like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the same. Like, use a different program. Like, there's so many good programs out there. My last few questions is just about the scene, and we're going to get into them, and then obviously we're going to have a little Q&A at the end. Basically, I just want to know your thoughts on the current UK scene and like why is it so like we're gonna get. I want you to get in depth on this as well because so many people want criticism from you. Why do you think the scene is it is right now, despite so many people quitting for Valorant? I mean, you can touch on that topic as well if
Right.
you want, because this
Let's
is where
get
this
this.
is where we're gonna get the flame on. Get the flame on.
I'm not even joking. I'll need you to link me the spreadsheet because I literally don't even know
Well, you want me to give you the
how.
sheet?
Give me the sheet.
All right, wait there. Let me get it for you. I'll get you the sheet. Wait there. The sheet. The name.
Because like when you say the UKCS scene, I at this point I don't know who is even playing.
Yeah,
Like,
and I mean, to be honest, you're not the only one. I mean, I started doing this sheet out because I know a lot of people within the scene, from all levels, and that's why I wanted to do it. But like you say, people that are focusing on their own teams and quite at the top level really don't know who's in the scene anymore. Here, I'll get you the link now. Let me get you this. Share this. One sec. Here, if you go to the chat on the right of our screen. I've put it in there. You should be able to see it. See it on the.
here we go. Right.
Here you go.
Yeah. So obviously I saw this when you were doing it a while ago.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of red on it right now, which is it the folder teams or teams aren't playing
Uh.
anymore?
Well, yeah. Not playing folded. Essentially, yeah. It is the red blocks. There's a lot of them.
Yeah. So I'd say off the bat it's not in a great position, and I think I was watching your stream before with Emperor or Ash.
Yeah.
I think it was Emperor.
Hmm.
He said that it's the worst it's been in for a long time in terms of the scene. Like
Yeah.
there's no sort of competitiveness within the scene. So like I don't know whether ESL UK is going to run anything.
Yeah. I have no idea if they are.
Because it used to be like the top of the scene was like a battle between 3 or 4 teams, but now
Hmm.
I don't really see any of that. Like
Yeah.
you have people reaching out into other regions, like with Mezzy and Adam going to Gamer Legion, which is obviously a really good thing.
Yeah.
But at that point, they leave the scene, right? So
Yep.
it's a bad point. So, um, but in terms of the teams, like yeah, I mean, there's still a handful of teams ranging between sort of advanced down to open,
Hmm.
but I think the skill disparity between the teams is in the best position. Like I was saying before, there used to be in ESL UK, it used to be like a battle between 3, 4, 5 teams, but now everyone sort of quit, moved to other games, or just flat out just
Yeah.
quit playing. So it's probably the worst I've seen it. Um, the second time it was probably close to this was I think before Gfinity or just after Gfinity when everyone started quitting again. But
Hmm.
I think at this point it's the worst I've seen it in terms of high tier teams.
And getting on, like staying on topic about the scene. Obviously, I don't want to go too off topic with the interview with you, but um, that's Emperor's just made a tweet saying he's quit CEX, so that affects the sheet even more that we're currently
Oh
on.
really?
He just made a tweet saying, obviously I don't want to get off topic because it's an interview with you and about Endpoint and stuff, but linking to the scene, he says, parted ways with the CX esports guys, that's me done with CS altogether, I think now, not going to be actively pursuing future projects, not going to give out details publicly, it is what it is. So, we speak about the scene, mate, and it's getting worse whilst we're live on stream, so, that's a topic I can touch on in another stream. But anyway, linking on to that question and about the scene, do you think that it can get back to, so let's link back to the level where we had the 3 or 4 competitive teams at the top. We had you, we had Fierce, and we had Vexed, and then we had like the Shets at the time, what they were called. They would give some people a good game. I think they beat you in a best of one in EPS, right? They obviously best of ones. We don't want to bring it back, but I'm just saying that they can compete. At that level.
Yeah.
Do you think we can get back to that anytime soon, or do you think it's going to be a long time? And if you do think we can get back to that level, what do you think needs to be put in place, or how do people need to change to be where we are, where we was?
Honestly, I don't see how we'll get back there at least anytime soon because everyone that was in those teams is quit or gone to Valorant. So
Hmm.
and obviously their own scene in Valorant is sort of new and emerging. So I don't think unless like they quit Valorant and come back to CS that they're gonna start playing again. So it's like it's kind of on the teams that are like Jets and were like teams below them is to get better and better, which is difficult because I think the only team they can look for, like I always compare this like the Brazilian scene, right? When they first came back with Fallen and stuff, they didn't play CS:GO, but then they won all the majors, and all these Brazilian teams had to look up to them. And like right now, like we're the best UK team, and even then we're not like we're good, but we're not at majors or anything. So there's nothing special like that. So like we're the only team they can look up to, and which
Hmm.
is something I've been trying to do. Well, I'm planning to do. It's like build like a way for people to learn how to IGL and stuff. Because I think
Yeah.
it's something that in the UK, especially, like there's no veteran players willing to help people. So it's
Yeah.
something that I'm going to try and do.
Hmm.
But it's going to take a long time before the scene gets better. I think.
Yeah,
Or
it's going to be a while. I can
yeah.
agree. And when you touched upon like saying you want to, help out with the streams and you want to give back to the community, like because people from before didn't want to do it. That's essentially why I've started this, and like this is why so many people wanted you to come onto the show, bro. Is because they want to learn from you. So the fact that you're going to go on and push out some content and try and find a way to help people is total respect. But moving on, that's my questions for today. Moving on, we're going to go into a little bit of a Q&A and chat. A lot of people was asking some questions you've asked before, boys. Chuck them back in the chat, and I'll ask Max on stream, and he'll give you an answer. I think some people. Yeah, there's one here actually. I can see it. Are you surprised how well some of these UK teams have done in Valorant?
No. No.
No, just no.
No, I think obviously when they were playing CS, they were still. I know they weren't top of the European side of things, but they were still good players. You know, like you look at Fish123, and I'll admit they're literally the only team I know. So maybe there are some other UK teams, but you know they've got like Link and Dom and stuff, and they had Ardis and they got Jay and who else they got? Oh, I'm forgetting someone. But like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were
Dom as well.
good CS yeah, they were all good CS players. So like in that game, from my experience playing it, like it's similar to CS, if not a slower game than CS. So like it's a game that will reward aiming, and they were all really good aimers. So
Mhm.
and they got Sticky behind them, who's just kicking them up the arse every time they want to get lazy. I think so, which is a
Yeah,
good thing.
for sure. Moving on as well, there's another question here. What are you doing after you finish your season of CS? Like celebrating having a lockdown party? I guess he means in the player break. What are you gonna do in your lovely little player break, mate? Nice few beers,
Um,
some beers.
I don't know. I haven't really planned anything. Like we can't go on holiday or anything, can we?
No,
So we have to wait and see.
nice
Maybe.
little chill one, mate. You'll probably be sitting here still playing CS.
Yeah, probably.
I'm sure he'll be having a nice little swim in the pool that he's got, shrimp on the barbie and all that, and having a nice beer. Does he? Do you regret making the switch to IGL?
Um, I'd say that in terms of individually, like, yeah, because I think I've always been a better player that hasn't been IGL. Like before I was IGL, I was always the sort of secondary guy that would like coordinate around the team, which is kind of what robiin does in our team. Because obviously, like me and him have IGL'd in teams and not IGL'd in teams, so like it's kind of natural for us to
Yeah,
if I'm IGLing that he's going to be like the secondary kind of guy,
yeah,
along with Kaya. So like in terms of like individually, I kind of regret it, but like at the same time, I don't because I think it was required. Like in
mhm,
order to naturally progress the scene, like certain people had to go IGL. So
yeah,
I would have probably regretted it more if we weren't doing so well,
yeah.
but we are. So like it's working out. So I don't
No,
know.
for sure.
So
When you've got that satisfying feeling, you're not going to regret such a decision. If you made that role change and then you guys just went down the drain, it would be kind of a regret. So
yeah, yeah.
it's fair enough. Some guy said that he's looking forward to any sort of tutorials that you bring out for UK players and stuff like that. That's a question I want to touch though on what he's just said. When do you think that you're going to start pushing out some more stuff for people to help people out? Have you got like a plan? Obviously, you've been streaming a couple of times, but is it something you're going to work on and start pushing out regularly in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a few DMs already about it from
Hmm.
my streams, but it's something that, like we were saying before, with our schedule right now, like it's impossible to do right now. But I think either during or after the player break, it'll be more of a thing that I can do, just because at that point we're not playing, best of threes every single day.
Hmm.
So it's like a work in progress. I think there's no real set um agenda for it yet.
Yeah, for sure. Sniffle04 asks, what were the best things specifically that Ross CS brought to the table as coach, which helped you guys improve the most?
Um, I think one of the things he did was sort of like we had a boot camp before we went to Anaheim, which in hindsight wasn't a great. Well, actually, it was a bit of good and bad of a boot camp because we ended up playing I think like 8 qualifiers instead of practicing.
Yeah.
Um, but like we were all getting like so mad, like not like, kind of at each other, but also just mad of just like playing. You like, know how qualifiers are. You start at like 1 p.m. You play the entire day, and then if you lose, like we did, we had to play the next day in a different qualifier, and then we lose, and then we play the next day. So it was going crazy. But like what he was able to bring was just like this level-headedness and like kind of maturity, and like he would contextualize all of our defeats as like progress to improve and
Hmm.
to reflect upon and stuff like that. Which is why, like I was saying before, everyone thought of him as like this guy that would just bring strats, whereas
Hmm.
now he's sort of this. I don't know what the word is, but like he's more than just bringing strats. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
able
yeah,
to like keep us level-headed, and like he knows kind of what to say to not annoy people,
yeah.
and he's able to also address any issues that like occur. So
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know him too well personally, but from an outside perspective, and from his interview, I can kind of tell he's got like a very good tone and he's got a very good way like of approaching people and talking to people in the team. And we spoke about this before with other people, and we're not going to name any names. You've got to be a very good people's person, right? To able to deal with problems and talk to people in a good manner, especially when emotions are high. And I think the tone of his voice and the way he approaches himself as a person, I think is very good for you guys, and obviously it fits really well. Any more questions for Max in the chat, boys? I've asked all mine. We're just going to finish off a little bit more of a Q&A. Any more questions before we go? I'm sure it won't be the last time I have him on a stream. I'm sure I'll get him back on eventually after they qualify for another tournament or win another one. But any more questions? If not, we're going to call it an end, boys. Can you ask about Ian's? I can't ask that. I'm trying to ask serious questions here. Content, you know? Um, Everyone's just flaming each other. I think someone had a question up here from earlier. Let me just quickly grab it. Oh no, that's just Keita and Pickles asking about how many showers you've had this week. Never mind.
I saw Thomas. Obviously, it was kept between me and Thomas, but I will say that Ross does abuse us a lot verbally.
There he is. Abuse. Coming all out now on stream. Has he got a Domino's on the way? Pickles.
Is that an actual question? Because it's a no.
There's no. Okay. All right. Here's a. George is such a good looking lad. Thank you, Tapper. I love you. Here we go. Some proper questions. Finally, these are the guys I want. Has there ever been a moment recently where you've proper doubted yourself as a caller, like as you guys have climbed the ranks?
Yeah, like it's easy when we lose to start down yourself, and like for me personally, when we can't practice and add new things, I always feel like teams will understand how we play a lot like easier every time we play them. Because like, if you practice them and you play against them, and then all you do is play officials, all they have to do is watch some of your demos. And like if you can't practice, you can't add new things. So
Yeah.
then I think every team that we play against anti-strats as well. So it's like if we can't add new things, they know exactly how we play, and then it makes it so much harder for me to call because I've got to do like random calls, and if it's not coherent or it's not something we've gone over before, it can be confusing. And then if you lose because of that, you're doubting whether like you're calling well, and like everyone else is sort of doubting you as well. They're like, oh, why are you calling these things you've never done before?
Yeah.
So like it's obviously when things are going well, it's hard to doubt yourself, but when things are going bad, like you have to contextualize the losses and realize that in the grand scheme of things, they're not that bad. Like
Yeah.
we're towards the end of the season, and like everyone in our team is drained from playing so much,
Yeah.
especially me. So
Yeah, that,
yeah.
that burnout topic is obviously when we touched upon it earlier. If anyone's missed the VOD so far, you can go back in and check it. This is obviously going to be on YouTube as well. But when we talked about that burnout thing, it's definitely played a massive part in this roster. Some more good questions here. What are the key qualities needed in being an IGL, in your opinion?
You have to. Well, I know there are different ways of IGLing from what I've heard. Like I speak to Keita a bit, and obviously he coaches complexity, so I know a bit about how like they would sort of approach the game and how I'd approach the game.
Yeah.
Like the way that I do it is more sort of more open, like because I'm also learning what I'm doing at the same time. Like I take a lot of input from our team, so like being able to take criticism and also not be afraid to ask for help and like for opinions on things is a big positive in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, and also like not raging at your teammates, and it's not just an IGL thing, but any player in the team. Like don't sit there raging at your teammates mid game because it doesn't really help anyone. And it's something that like we've set as a to keep the atmosphere good in our team. Like it's just a rule that we don't do anymore. So it's some other things I guess is you have to be hardworking and like resilient because
Hmm.
especially for me, I haven't really done this before. So it's a lot of getting things wrong before you get them right. So you have to stick at it.
Hmm.
So there's probably a list of things to be an IGL. Like some people have it quite naturally,
Yeah.
like in terms of leadership, whereas I'd probably say I don't. So it's like learning how to be a leader as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like there could be hundreds of things,
Yeah,
but
I think as well, like that question as well can link to the content you're going to start pushing out, right? So you can get
yeah,
more in depth in
definitely,
that when you get onto that in the next weeks or so. More questions here as well. Pickles, good question. What does Max think it's going to take for them to get into the top 30?
yeah. I don't know, like
HLTV finally giving points for the right tournaments. No, never mind.
I don't know, like we can qualify for Dreamhack, we can win tournaments, no points. Like I don't know, maybe we
Yeah.
have to win the major or something.
There he is, angry guy. Moving on from that. What's the worst map in your opinion, and why is it Dust 2? Sniffle 14. What's the worst
Dust
map?
2,
Yeah, he said
Dust 2 is
Dust
one
2's
of
the
the best
worst.
maps.
MiGHTYMAX
I
loves Dust 2. But what do you think the worst map is in the pool right now?
Well, as an IGL,
Yeah.
mate, it has to be Overpass, surely. Like that map is so like, especially playing T side. Like you watch any team, and it's so hard to play a T side Overpass because it's so big. And if you get forced into doing strats, it can be quite readable. And if you
Yeah.
try and default, you just get picked, and you end up 5v4 the entire game. So it's like it's that map for me, 100%.
Yeah, for sure. There's more questions here as well. Jesus Christ, we're all coming out now with questions, boys. Is there any lineup you would like to see form in the UK that could have a chance to stick together and progress? Endpoint Pete, the boss, the gaffer. Just say me, mate, if you want.
Well, I
Joking.
think I think they kind of could be a team, but it would require like people that aren't in the scene to come back. If that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
so, and then that goes about even the tricky thing about UK teams is you always have to take into account people's feelings with each other because there's certain people that won't play with people. There's people that would like don't like people. But if you took away all that stuff, like they could easily be a team that can compete like to a top 50 level, minimum top 60, I'd say. Like
hmm
people like Mezzi and Adam could form a team easily, but they're in Gamer Legion, so
Yeah, they've gone to the Gaming Legion now. For sure. I agree, though. I think there could be another roster formed with the right people that could have some success if they just stuck around together and done the right things. I fully agree with that. What was the biggest factor that you guys took away for a team when you had the losses against Complexity? We kind of touched upon it earlier, but what was the biggest factor?
um, we like we we realized that the way we approached the game was decent, but you could see in contrast to Complexity that they had so many more answers to things that we hadn't even thought of,
hmm
and the way they set up sort of started the rounds was so good that it
hmm
was really hard to sort of break them at the start. So you have to play for the late game, and then if you have a poor late game, like they would also beat you as well because they have another answer for something. So like
hmm
that's one thing we took. Like we watched the demos back, and then we watched also some of their games,
Yeah.
and we realized that like we had to approach it a bit differently and have sort of different fundamentals, I guess is the word for it,
hmm
for like starting rounds and like figuring out as well like how we wanted to play. Like every time you watch something and you see people do it differently, you kind of question how you're playing,
hmm
which is a good thing. So we were able to figure out a couple of things and realize that some things were doing well and some things we thought we were doing well at because of
Yep.
practice, but when you came to a top team, it just wasn't good at all. So like those
Yeah,
are the main.
I think that's very good points to touch on as well because you guys played them quite a few times. So yeah, I guess it's good to like in find out like the biggest reasons of what actually happened. I really like this question here from Fabulous Cookie. Is there anybody in the UK who you would like to play with in a team if you had to replace a player, and anybody who you'd never want to team with ever or again? I guess.
Um,
So one player you'd like to play with if you ever needed +1, God forbid, and one player you'd never want to play with again. Or never would like to team with. You don't have to answer the second part if you don't want to start causing some drama.
that's so hard. That'd be big trouble for me. I think um, to play with someone, like I've never played with Messi, but obviously like he's kind of shot up in everyone's eyes as being this new
Mhm.
talent or like emerging talent. So I guess it would be Messi.
Yep.
For the second one, it could be big trouble, I
No,
guess.
no comment. All right, no comment on the second one. If you want to find that out privately, Cookie, I guess chuck him a DM. I could kind of guess, to be honest, of a couple.
No,
Um,
I can't actually think of someone. So
yeah. I actually like this question. Nate, my good mate. I think you met Nate before, maybe. It's one question I get asked a lot, and I did an interview for this guy the other day, and he asked a question. I actually love it. I don't know why I don't ask it more. What did your family think about you pursuing CS? Like, this could have been a long time ago, obviously, when you first went out pro. Like, did you have any issues starting out, like, to classify yourself as a professional gamer, or was it just breezy work and you just got on with it, or was it any struggles at trying to enlighten them on
Uh,
how big it can be as a player?
yeah, I mean, my dad thought I was mad.
Yeah,
Um,
mine too.
the first salary we got in Endpoint was like £200 a month, and
Hmm.
this was right. This was like, I don't know how long I've been, like maybe right at the start, like when I first joined.
Yeah,
It was £200 a month, and I said, "Oh, look, I'm being paid £200 a month," and he was like, "Yeah, but that's nothing. Like,
yeah,
you have to go and find a real job still." I was like, yeah, we'll see."
yeah.
But like, even now, like I think my brother and sister don't really see it as a job, whereas some people's families see it as a job. So
Yeah.
it's like it's kind of a weird one.
It's such a horrible feeling as well, right? Like I had this firsthand with a lot of my family, very old school, very like as soon as it was brought up, like it was just get a job. And then when I proved like my first paycheck within CS, like I showed them it and they were still like, that's terrible, you know? And it's such a demoralizing, I think is the word, like, because you've worked so hard to get where, you know, being this pro, I guess, and you've got no support. So it's kind of a sucky feeling. I guess it's a good question. And I think a lot of players have gone through that first down. Even at the top of the end players still who are getting paid fortunes still struggle with that with their family. So it's a very good question, Nate. Moving on. Max showed me Dust 2 defaults for 30 minutes and I quit CS the next day. Pickles.
That was actually true.
What? Any more questions? Have I missed any here? Let me quickly look. I don't think I've missed any. No. Right, if not, I'm going to ask my last question because I wasn't going to ask this, but a lot of people have asked me to do it. Best and worst things about your teammates in the team. You don't have to do, by the way, you don't have to do the worst things if you don't want to. It's just a bit of funny banter. The team will probably want to hear it
Uh,
as well.
I get to flame my team. This is enjoyable.
All right, go on.
No, I'm joking.
All right, we can do Ross as well if you want. If you want to do him as well, we'll do the team and we'll do Ross. We'll do best and worst things. Let's start out with my good mate Thomas. The Thomas lad coming on the show next, by the way. I'll have you know.
Best thing about Thomas is that he's just really highly skilled, and you can kind of, if you tell him what to do, he will just do it
Yeah.
without really asking anything. Bad thing is that I think sometimes he can get into his own head a bit.
Hmm.
If he's not performing well, or like I think he just finished his uni work, but before he used to have a lot of uni deadlines and stuff, so he used to get
Yeah.
into his own head a little bit. But yeah, Thomas is pretty easy to say. I think
Yeah,
like
for
it's
sure.
a good thing and a bad thing.
And I think me and Lazza spoke about him on my last stream, and we said we think he's grown a lot as a player. Like we obviously he's got more experience now of just playing constantly with HLTV, and I think like his emotional side probably improved drastically. That's what me and Joe was talking about. Moving on from him, the Joey lad. Oh, I love this guy. Best and worst things about the Joey lad.
Best thing is that he's just so energetic and easy to work with. Like I think everyone says this about him, not just me. Like he's easily the best teammate you can play with because he never puts anyone down. Like he's always there. He's always contributing. He's always just being funny and stuff. He's just a nice teammate to be around all the
Hmm.
time. Bad thing, I don't even know. Like
Only if there isn't one, you don't have to answer it, bro. Like it's one of those things.
bad thing is that probably you find quite hard to get to interview him.
We'll see about that one. I'll be on straight on the Steam messages in a minute, but to be fair, you're probably not wrong. It's gonna be very hard for me to get him on, but I'll do my best. I'll work up some magic and love. Moving on from him, Robin lad, Tista Swede, best and worst.
Robin, best, I think, for me personally, and it might even be the same for Ross if you bring him on. Like he can test it. Like he's changed a lot with his like personality in this team. Like when he started GL and stuff, everyone knew he can be like quite stressful and stuff. But in this team, he's changed it dramatically over the past 6 months because it was something that we each said we need to work on certain things, and he's done it probably the best job of sort of transforming himself.
Yeah.
Bad thing. Um, I don't know. Like I can't think of a bad thing. Like,
he isn't from the UK. Is that the bad thing?
yeah, and he can make a really weird voice with his mouth if you bring him onto the show.
Finally, Pete's already forced it in the contracts. They've all got to come on, so I'm gonna be enjoying it, mate. The views and everything. Gonna be enjoying asking the questions. You should really think of a bad thing though, because I'm sure they're gonna hit you with a bad thing when I ask them the same question. But it don't matter.
Oh,
Um,
probably.
Tista K Man, mate. There he is. Best and worst thing. I
Um,
love that
I
guy.
think the good thing about Kai is that he's always the guy you can sort of ask for a neutral opinion on something. Like, say you know, you might win or lose a game, but you watch it back and you're like, man, like this round, like what's happened in this round? Like, is it good
Yeah,
or bad? And then like, you know, you might have a discussion, people get heated, and like Kyle will go, no, like this is what it is. And they're like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, that makes sense. Like that's a good thing to have in a team. It's like a neutral person that can voice an opinion. You know, I think that's a really good thing that he does. Bad thing again, like it's hard to think of a bad thing. Like, the worst thing. Actually, this is pretty funny.
yeah. Go on.
Um,
I like
I
sleeping too
mean,
much. Pete said. Yeah, I love it.
I don't know if hopefully doesn't mind me saying this, but the worst thing he's done for the team is he almost didn't make it to Anaheim.
I remember that actually. I remember. I can't remember. He's talking about it in Teamspeak. I think I was in Teamspeak with Neil, and he mentioned it. That's fucking funny. Came on, mate. There he is. Pete sitting indoors, like in the office, sweating, absolutely sweating. Team's not gonna make it. Gonna miss the first game. He's gone through that experience before as well with someone. Obviously, might be on this show. No, don't talk about it. We don't talk about it. We'll move on from that one. Best and worst thing about Ross as a coach.
The worst thing is the easiest one with Ross. Like it's just he works full time as well as coaching, so for him it can
Yeah,
be difficult to sort of manage both.
yeah,
Um, but the good thing is that like whenever we need him, he's always there, and he's always, like I was saying before, he's always able to sort of be the maturest person in the channel and always give a perspective on something.
yeah,
And every time we think things are going bad or like we're losing, he's always sort of there to reassure us that it's not the worst thing in the world. You know, like
yeah,
he's always able to sort of contextualize things. And the other thing as well, like he's able to work with our analyst and also sort of provide us with like extra information about opponents and stuff, which is a really good thing.
yeah, for sure. And then points that you bring up is quite good. You know, it was something I wasn't going to ask, but then someone asked in the chat about me asking. It's always good because everyone wants to. I think not a lot of people know about the inside of the roster. You know, and everyone's looking up to you guys at the moment. You know, like, and there's a good reason why. And I think the more I try and push out as much content as possible to get people to know you as a team and how you do things as a team and get to know you as players, I think it's going to benefit you guys. So I'm glad that I actually asked that question in the end. But
This was actually something we did in our boot camp as well, though. Like right at the start of the team, we said, it's actually Ross that said it. It was like we need to sort of say good things and bad things about each other, so we
yeah.
know sort of how to improve.
Yeah, and I think, you know, asking that question from me to you is, I mean, it shouldn't be an issue. You know, you guys are a serious team, professional team. You guys are going to be able to give criticism to one another. So I knew it wasn't going to be an issue. And I think the best thing for you guys is the fact that you can do that and have no worries is why you've done so well. But that concludes my interview for today. I'm going to make an announcement on my Twitter in like a couple of minutes of who I've got coming on next. Let me just public it now real quick. It's going to be the Mezzy lad coming on my show. We're going to hop back onto my channel. It's going to be next week. But in the future, probably next week sometime, we're going to have someone else from the Endpoint team or some of the staff. Might be the Pete lad coming in on the show. It's going to be someone. Hopefully I can get the K-Man on. I want it to be K-Man next, but I'm gonna try. Whoever I can get on is the best way. Pete's gonna force it for me. He's gonna do me a favour, but hopefully I'll be able to get the guy on unless he's sleeping. But yeah, boys, if you need any more questions or we've missed out something on stream, hit up MiGHTYMAX on Twitter. I'm sure you wouldn't mind people DMing you for some advice, Max. He's obviously said he's going to be pushing out more content in the future. So hit him up if you need him. Pete there, Blame F on Whitey's show. I'd absolutely love Blame F on my show with the K-Man. Can you imagine Blame F, K-Man, all on the show? God, it'd be viewers galore, mate. I'll be enjoying it. But yeah, boys, hit up MiGHTYMAX on Twitter. Make sure you follow him. Follow Team Endpoint. Follow me. They're going to be having some updates in the next coming weeks. Hopefully, going to have some more people on. I hope you all enjoyed the stream. First show on Through the Scope with Endpoint. And yeah, I'll be seeing you guys next week. Peace.